Hey there Babylonians, my name is Songs of Raids and welcome back to another video on Babylon. Today we're going to be looking at a slightly different game. We're going to branch out a little bit into something that's very similar. It feels very at home if you've played Outriders, but this is more for the PvP. So if you're looking for something that's along the lines of Counter-Strike but crossed with Outriders, then you've come to the right place. This is Rogue Company and it is a free-to-play game. It is also cross-platform as well, which is right up our alley, and it is just such a fun game to play. And today we're going to be looking at one rogue in particular, and that is Scorch. And Scorch is so much fun. It is basically one of the best duelists that is in the game. The only thing that can counter a Scorch is another Scorch, or potentially a sniper rifle, depending on the range. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look into why Scorch is so good, what makes Scorch's equipment so good as well, and then how to play her as well, and just to be able to get the best out of it. And you're going to see some really good clips in the background because I really get on playing the Scorch, and yeah, the gameplay is just going to be top notch. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get straight into it. Before I go any further, I'd love for you to be able to click on that subscribe button, and if you're really feeling lucky and wanting to be able to show us a little bit more support, make sure you click that join button as well. Memberships start from as little as 99p, and it really does mean the world to us, and you'll be able to get yourself an exclusive role in our Discord, so feel free to do that and just show us some support, and we would greatly appreciate it. So Scorch is designed to be a duelist character, and what that means in this game is their equipment is designed to be able to take 1v1 gunfights or 2v1 gunfights and still be able to come out on top. They're your main gunfighters when it comes to this game, and just have their fully automatic guns, although everything's just designed to be able to kind of sync like in tandem, basically, to be able to help you get onto the site, take out what defenders or any attackers that are coming to you, and just basically get yourself set up. And if you're looking to go on some kind of killing spree, I'd highly recommend the duelist class. But why does Scorch do this so well? Well, anything from her ability down to her gear is basically designed to be just so good. So you've got your SMG, your probably one of the fastest fire rates in the entire game. You've got a shotgun that has 2 rounds. It's kind of like if you've ever played Call of Duty, the Olympia. It's not really worth it. It's almost kind of like a troll weapon. So always stick with the SLC if you're looking to be able to do competitively, or you're looking to be able to go on those long sprees. You've also got the A3 Salvo pistol, which is a 3-round burst, and it does quite a bit of damage. It has got quite a long burst delay in it, so I wouldn't necessarily rely on this, but as a backup it does really well. Then you've got Rosie, which is a melee weapon, which is kind of unique to the fact that Scorch is not able to throw her melee weapon like all the other kind of rogues, because Rosie is her arm. So she goes around punching people, and you can upgrade that to be able to do even more damage, and even apply a damage over time every single time you hit an enemy. In terms of gadgets, you've got the Emp Grenade and the Incendiary Grenade. We'll go back to these in a second, because these are very crucial in parts of her equipment, and allow her to do her job so effectively. So we'll come back to those in a second, and then we're looking at the perks. And the perks are all designed about mobility, giving yourself a little bit of extra armor to be able to take on that duel, and also being able to replenish your ammo in your gun. And lastly, with the tenacity, you've got reduced damage to explosions. So everything is designed to be able to be fast reloading while sprinting, moving quickly, keeping yourself alive, and all that kind of good stuff. So let's break it down a little bit more. Let's look into the equipment and find out why I enjoy Scorch so much. So when we break Scorch down, there's 3 crucial parts to her equipment, and everything else is kind of personal preference as far as I'm concerned, or at least this is how I play anyway. So you've got the SLC, which is an MP7 in disguise. You've got the EMP grenade, and you've got the Incendiary Grenade. Now, the 2 grenades, if you're fairly new to this game, you can take both out with you in the field. It's not like the primary weapons. You don't have to choose between which one you want to take or the other. You can upgrade both to the fullest. You can take both of them out with you, and you have a button that's designed to be able to swap back and forth. So you've got all your options there ready for you when you're out in the field. So we'll touch back on the SLC first, and then we'll get into the grenade. So the SLC is just a monster of a gun, but only really when you're in close range kind of gunfights. Now, I find it's better to have upgrade 2 on this, but we'll go through the tiers in itself in a second. But the body damage does 12 at its most, and there is a headshot multiplier across the whole board as far as I'm aware, which is 1.5. So you'll see headshots do anywhere between 17 to 18 damage. and that's quite nice, and obviously that reduces your time to kill if you get enough headshots. So if you can get yourself close enough, obviously you can get some work done and just melt some people really quickly. The only problem is that the range is really pitiful on this. You're looking at, in terms of maximum damage range, you would think it would be kind of like shotgun range. So more often than not, in terms of the engagements you're going to find yourself in, you're probably going to be dealing anywhere between 8 to 10 damage. Now 10 seemed to be the most consistent, and 8 seemed to be like the furthest away. So it's not too bad. It's not like it goes back and forth between quite a lot of the damage values, but just know that most of the gunfights you're going to get yourself into, you're probably looking at a 10-shot kill, unless you mix in some headshots and unless you use your character ability. The fire rate more than makes up for this, because the fire rate is huge, and this is obviously the main selling point of the gun, and the handling is not too bad, but obviously it gets better over time the more you actually put into this gun and upgrade it as it goes. The mag size is a standard a 30, and upgrade 1 obviously increases this to 40. Upgrade 2 increases the hip fire accuracy and removes the jump penalty, and upgrade 3 it suppresses your firing, so I don't believe you show up on the radar in the top right, but also obviously makes it a little bit quieter, and it also helps to reduce your recoil in case you're trying to do some sustained kind of distance shooting. So why do I only recommend that you only go to upgrade 2 on this? Now, don't get me wrong, suppressing firing and reducing recoil sounds nice on paper, but the majority of the times I've got myself into gunfights, I don't need to aim down sights because of how good this SMG is really up close and using hip fire. It just kind of decimates. As soon as you hit upgrade 2, it seems to almost, I haven't got the exact figures, but it seems to tighten your hip fire cone by like about 50%. And the fact that you then have the jump penalty removed means that you can actually be even more mobile, more than what your enemies are expecting, and still be able to put all that damage out. The best kind of like tactic to be able to play as Scorch if someone's right up in your face is the fact that you can just jump round a corner. They're not going to be aiming there, so obviously they're not going to be hitting your head, and you're still going to be pretty accurate. So as long as you're obviously got your crosshair trained, you should be able to win that fight. And I think that's probably what makes this the best duelist class, is if they've got that upgrade too. So highly recommend getting the SLC over the Arbitrator, but make sure with your money, obviously as long as you're getting a few kills, make sure you get yourself up to upgrade 2 at the very least. So let's move swiftly on to the grenades and why these gadgets are so good at being equipped for some kind of duelist. So the EMP grenade is the first place to start. So this damages equipment and prevents targets from using their abilities, gadgets and radar for a duration. Now upgrade 1 increases the EMP duration, and upgrade 2 increases the grenade count by 1. So all of a sudden, if you get this fully maxed out, you're able to carry 2 EMP grenades with you. Why are these so good? Well, for example, it's probably better on attack than it is defense, but if you're, let's say you're attacking a bomb site and the enemy team's got a Ronin and they've got a trench, and you know full well they are using some kind of trip mine and Ronin's using their little tiny dagger that obviously explodes. So you can chuck an EMP grenade onto the site and you can take all of that out. You don't need to worry anymore about where they are. You don't need to put yourself in any kind of danger to try and take them out. You actually have a grenade that will do that job for you, and that is... It's just so nice to be able to have that kind of utility kicking around, and that's why it pairs really nicely with the incendiary grenade, which we're going to touch on in just a second. The other side of it is the fact that you can chuck it at other players, and obviously if you chuck it at an enemy player, it's obviously it's not like a flashbang, it's not going to disorient them or anything like that, but it is still quite nice to be able to cut them off from some kind of information. They can't use their gadgets, so if they're trying to use like a rocket launcher or anything like that, they don't have that ability anymore, and obviously they then lose their radar, so if they only know you're coming, they don't know about where everyone else is when they start shooting. So it's really nice, it's nice utility, and it's really good to have that kind of feature available to you, especially as an attacker. Obviously it can still be used on defense, but it's better as attack. When we were doing the attack, you'll see a clip in the background where someone was able to chuck a C4 out, and because I managed to time an EMP grenade, the EMP grenade detonated, exploded the C4, and killed the same player that chucked the C4 out. So it is actually really useful, and so just make sure you have a couple of these just kicking around at some point in the late game. If we go from there over to the incendiary grenade, now this is your way to be able to push people out of cover. Now the main selling point of this game is the fact that it's third person, and you don't need to make a move if you're a defender unless an attacker just starts getting a bit aggro on you and obviously starts making the first move. So it's always kind of like a weird Mexican standoff that everyone's behind cover waiting for the first person to make a move. With the incendiary grenade, you can force them to do that, and the reason why is because when you chuck the grenade onto a piece of cover, the fire goes behind the cover. Obviously as long as you've got the placement right, but it can go behind it from like if you're like crouching behind it or anything like that, it goes over and it starts dealing damage. Now if you get upgrade 1, this increases the radius, so it's more likely to be able to catch some people as they move out and do a little bit more damage if they're trying to escape it. And upgrade 2 increases the duration, so this is more for area denial or just like last ditch chucking on the bomb, just to be able to encourage enemies to not be able to defuse and just buy yourself a little bit of extra time. This grenade is so good, the fact that it deals 10 damage per tick, and obviously it gives you some really good intel because the damage numbers follow the enemy where they're going. So if they're still staying behind, this even works against Scorch, like an enemy Scorch, because they're immune to burning, but it will still come up with immune there, so you know if they're still standing in the fire or they're not. And this is such a game changer for Scorch. It really is worth buying, just even the base version of this if you've got the money around. And I'll move on to like my starting loadouts and all that when we do casual, but I would not leave spawn without an incendiary grenade just because of how strong that actually is. So we're still starting out and we're still grinding our way to get to level 30 to be able to do the competitive scene, and obviously we want to bring some more competitive kind of side of gameplay. We want to show you what's a bit more meta, we want to show what's, you know, what most people are kind of using to be able to get themselves up through the ranks. But that means that we get to mess about a little bit in casual. It means there's no stakes just involved. It just means we can get used to more of the rogues. Now, my starting loadout when it comes to casual, it gives you 13 grand to be able to spend. Now, it sounds a lot, but in theory, it actually isn't that much. All they've done really is just reduce the pistol rounds that used to be at the start of the game. And it just gets you basically straight into the action. So, you know, it's quite nice. But you've got 13 grand to spend, and I would highly recommend that my starting loadout is to go for the SLC for 8 grand, and then with the remaining 5 grand buy yourself an incendiary grenade. The perks are very nice, but they come into it a little bit later when you've obviously got yourself set up and you're a bit more confident with your current loadout. And the incendiary grenade is too good to pass up on for the fact that it gives you intel, and it also pushes enemies out of cover. Honestly, if I could get a second one of these, I would be laughing at it. I'd quite happily pay another 10 grand just to be able to get a second one, but unfortunately I think they know that as a balancing issue they have to only give you the one. But highly recommend grabbing the incendiary grenade and then maybe increase its radius on when you've got a little bit of spare cash, but then work straight towards getting yourself the SLC up to upgrade tier 2, and then at that point you no longer need to worry about aiming down sights. You can literally just be as mobile as you want and just go absolutely decimate everyone that's in your way. Grab yourself an EMP grenade if you've got a little bit of spare cash, and obviously then you're pretty much set. In terms of perks, the headstrong one is really good, but obviously it's really expensive. The fact that you can get an extra 25 health, so basically 25% of your current start, and you can regen that as well if you just spend like a couple of seconds, I think it is, just being able to repair it after a fight. Nimble Hands is probably the best perk that I would highly recommend, and that's just because it just helps with your reload speed so much. It makes it almost instant, and obviously it helps you be able to chuck your grenades a little bit faster and obviously have your gun back up ready as well. So Nimble Hands is going to be the best perk to be able to grab. Maybe grab Evade or Berserker, but in terms of perks you don't necessarily need them. It's more about the loadout, it's more about the gadgets, and it's more about making sure your SLC is up to tier level 2. And lastly, just to round up Scorch as a character, you've got the passive and you've got the ability. Now the passive is kind of niche. It's really nice to actually have, but it's very situational depending on who you're going up against. So the passive just makes you immune to burning, and that means you can stand inside your own incendiary grenades, you can stand inside incendiary grenades of enemy characters, you can stand inside the explosive bit where Switchblade has activated a rocket launcher, and the explosive pools that are there, you can stand inside that and take no damage. The only thing to worry about is the fact that when you're stood inside that and it's an enemy's, it will actually pop up constantly saying immune to them, and they'll be able to tell roughly whereabouts you are. So it gives them a little bit of intel, but obviously you take no damage from that, and you can be ready for that kind of push. So you can use that to your own advantage. In terms of the ability, this is called Overheat, and what this does is you have to activate it before you get yourself into a fight, because it will disable your weapons for a little bit, and this just charges up your gun, so you deal extra fire damage on top of every single ability. So you can use your SLC, you can use your Arbitrator, you can use your salvo pistol, you can even use your punch, and every single hit is going to deal an additional damage over time, and every single tick of that will be 4 damage. So think of it as if you're using your SLC and you're doing 10 points of damage every single time you hit, you're then ticking over, and each time you refresh that, you're dealing an extra 4 points of damage, and that could essentially reduce the amount of bullets that it's taken to be able to kill. Now, the ticks don't last very long. It's not like it's going to last for 5 seconds and they're eventually going to run away and just like get burnt to death or anything like that, but it does help with the TTK, so it's a very good ability to actually use, especially up close, and it also helps disorient any kind of enemies that you're shooting, so it kind of does help out a little bit more that way. So it's damaging. It's possibly one of the better abilities in the game because it just increases your damage across all ranges, so make sure you use it, but just know that it does have a 45-second cooldown on it, so make sure to use it sparingly and know when you're going to activate it. And there you have it, Babylonians. That pretty much wraps up what Scorch can do in a really fiery nutshell. She is just so good at being able to handle close quarter combat, obviously with all of her kit, and she is probably the best duelist that's out there in the whole of the roster. So make sure you pick her up, give her a go, and make sure you watch this guide so you know how to gear yourself up as you get yourself into fights. At this point, we want to drop a special thanks to our YouTube members, so our supporters, our fans, and our Babylonian lovers. And obviously their names are going to pop up in every single video going forward, so if you're looking to be able to get yourself named featured on our videos going forward, make sure you click on that join button that's a little bit down below, right next to the subscribe button. It really can be as simple as 99p a month, and you can get your name up in stars right on our videos. We will be looking to do a little bit more Rogue Company videos for you and a little bit more content, so hopefully you've enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to click on that subscribe button and click on that like button as well, just to let us know that this content really is something that you're looking forward to. And as always, keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I'll see you all on that next video.